Hey there. So you're going to be speaking on AI.Code.Cast, huh? And you've got this cool problem to talk about, finding the complement of an integer, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
Well, we're going to dive deep into this, not just how to solve it, but really get into the strategy behind it so you can really impress that AI.Code.Cast audience.
It's a classic problem for sure. Lots of depth there.
Definitely. Okay, so first things first. What exactly do we even mean by the complement of a number?
You can think of it like a mirror image, but for binary numbers.
Okay.
Like say you've got the number 5,
Like 5.
which in binary that's 101, right?
Right, 101.
Its complement is basically what you get when you flip every single bit. So zeros become ones, ones become zeros.
Gotcha.
So the complement of 5 or 101 would be 010, which is 2 in decimal.
Ah, I see. That's a great way to put it. So for our AI.Code.Cast presentation, we want to explore different ways to find this complement. Where should we start?
Well, one way to think about it is how you would do it manually. Yeah, like if someone gave you a binary number and said, hey, flip every bit, what would you do?
I guess I just go through each digit one by one and just flip it. So if I see a 1, I change it to a 0, and vice versa.
Exactly. That's basically the brute force approach. You just iterate through each bit and you flip it. And in code, we can do this using the XOR operator.
Right. XOR. It's like that exclusive club where only one can be a 1 at a time.
Yeah.
If both bits are the same, it outputs a 0. But if they're different, then it's a 1.
Yeah. Perfect analogy. So to flip a bit, you XOR it with 1. Simple, right?
Yes.
Straightforward. But it does have its limitations. Can you think of what that might be?
Well, if you're going through every bit one at a time, I'm guessing it could get pretty slow if you're dealing with like a really large number, right?
You got it. You hit the nail on the head. While it's easy to understand, it's not always the most efficient, especially if you've got larger numbers.
That makes sense.
And, efficiency is something we often care about, right, in coding, especially in fields like AI, where we're working with huge amounts of data.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how do we make it faster?
Yeah.
There's got to be a more elegant way to do this.
There is. But before we get into that, I've got a question for you.
Okay, shoot.
What are some common pitfalls that someone might encounter when they're implementing this brute force approach, even with small numbers?
Well, I think if you're not careful, you might accidentally flip the bits twice.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if you're using a loop, like you could end up back where you started.
Absolutely.
With the original number.
That's a really good point. Another potential issue is not handling the sign bit correctly.
Yeah.
Especially if you're working with signed integers, you have to be really mindful of how that sign bit is treated during this whole complement operation.
Okay,
Yeah.
Good to know. So we've got this brute force method. Works, but isn't ideal for speed.
Yeah.
And we need to watch out for those pitfalls. So what's this more efficient way you're talking about? I'm all ears.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit and think, what if instead of flipping each bit individually, we could flip all the bits at the same time?
Wait, flip them all at once. How's that even possible?
That's where bit masks come in.
Bit masks. All right, you've got my attention. Tell me more. What are they and how can they help us flip all those bits in one go?
Bit masks.
Okay.
It sounds kind of mysterious. What are they exactly?
So imagine you have a stencil, right?
Okay.
And it's got these holes cut out in a certain pattern.
Okay. Yeah.
When you put it over something and you spray paint, only the areas showing through the holes get painted.
Right.
A bit mask is kind of like that stencil, but for bits. It's a number where each bit is like a tiny switch. It either lets the bit through
Okay.
or it flips it.
So if we want to flip all the bits in a number, what would our bit mask look like?
It would be a number where all the bits are set to 1.
Okay.
Because remember, when you XOR a bit with 1, you flip it. Right. So if our number is, let's say, 10, which is 1010 in binary, we need a bit mask that's 1111.
Exactly. And when you XOR 1010 with 1111, you get 0, 1 raised to 1, which is the complement of 10.
How?
We flipped all the bits at once.
That's pretty slick. But how do we actually create these bit masks? Especially for numbers of different sizes.
Yeah.
We can't just pull them out of thin air.
Right. There are a couple of ways to do this. One way is to build it up.
Okay.
Like step by step, using bit shifting and the OR operator.
All right.
So let's say we start with a mask of 0.
Okay.
0. We shift our number to the right, and every time we do that, we shift our mask to the left, and we add a 1 to it.
I'm trying to visualize this.
Yeah.
So if our number is 10, we shift to right to get 5. Then we shift our mask of 0 to the left and add a 1. So it becomes 1.
Right.
Then what?
You just repeat. Shift the 5 to the right, you get 2. Shift the mask to the left, add a 1, it becomes 11. Keep going until your number becomes 0.
Ah, okay. So for 10, we'd do that a couple more times, and we'd end up with a mask of 1111.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what we need
That's right.
to flip all the bits at 10.
Exactly. Now, another way to do this, especially if you're working with a language like Python or Java, is to use built-in functions.
Ooh, built-in functions. You know I love a good shortcut.
Me too, me too.
What have we got?
So in Python, there's this function called bit length, and it tells you how many bits you need to represent the number.
Okay.
And then you can use that to create your mask. In Java, you have integer.highestOwnBit. That one isolates the most significant bit, and that can be your starting point for building your mask.
Awesome. So we've got these two cool ways to create our bit masks. I'm curious, though, how much faster is this approach compared to going bit by bit?
Oh, it's much faster.
Like, is it snail speed or cheetah speed?
Cheetah, for sure. This bit mask approach, no matter how you create it, has a time complexity of 01.
Okay.
Meaning it takes a constant amount of time to compute the complement, regardless of the number size.
So even if I'm working with, like, a gigantic number,
yeah,
it'll be just as fast as a small one.
That's right. That's the power of these bitwise operations. You're working at a really low level, manipulating data directly. It makes them super efficient.
I see, I see. So understanding bit manipulation is really key in coding. It's like having the secret weapon for speed and efficiency.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And speaking of efficiency, there's another approach that's mentioned in the source material here.
Okay.
I think our AI.Code.Cast audience would love this one. It involves using powers of 2.
Powers of 2. Okay. Now you've got me really intrigued. How do powers of 2 fit into finding complements?
Well, it's all about understanding how binary numbers work and their relationship to these powers of 2. Let me ask you this. What's special about the binary representation of a power of 2? Think about numbers like 2, 4, 8, 16, and so on.
Well, they always have a single one, followed by a bunch of zeros. Like 8 is 1,000, 16 is 10,000, and so on.
Exactly. That's the key here. Let's say our number is 5.
All right, 5.
Which is 101.
Right.
To find the complement using this method, we first need to find the smallest power of 2 that's greater than 5.
So that would be 8, which is 1,000 in binary.
Right. Now, if we subtract 1 from 8, we get 7.
Okay.
Which is 111 in binary. What do you notice about that number?
It's all ones. And it has the same number of digits as our original number.
Yeah.
5. So it's like the perfect mask to flip those bits.
You got it. So by subtracting our original number 5 or 101 from this all ones number 7 or 111, we essentially flip each bit to get its complement.
So 111 minus 101 gives us 0, 10, which is 2, the complement of 5. Wow, that's clever. It's like a magic trick, but it actually makes sense when you break it down.
It really does. It's a perfect example of how understanding binary numbers can lead to these really elegant solutions. And this method, just like the bit mask approach, also has a time complexity of 01, so it's very efficient.
Okay, so we've got 3 cool ways to find the complement. The bit-by-bit approach, the bit mask method using XOR, and now this, powers of 2 technique. It's like we've got this whole toolbox of bit-twiddling tricks.
It is. And just like any good craftsperson, you want to know which tool is best for the job. So for our AI.Code.Cast speaker, which approach would you recommend they showcase to really wow the audience?
That's a good question. They're all cool in their own way. The bit-by-bit method is easy to grasp, but it's not very efficient.
Right.
The powers of 2 trick is really clever and efficient, but maybe a little hard to wrap your head around at first.
That's true. What about the bit mask approach? It's efficient, elegant, and really shows that you understand bit manipulation.
You're right. I think that one, the bit mask method, especially if they explain how to construct the mask on the fly, I think that would really impress the audience.
I agree. It's not just about the answer. It's about how you think about solving problems.
Yeah.
And how you use your knowledge to come up with these efficient and elegant solutions.
Exactly. Plus, if they can explain it well, it really shows that they understand how things work at the bit level, which is important in a lot of areas of coding, especially when you're talking about AI and machine learning.
Absolutely. And don't forget, these bit manipulation techniques, they're not just for finding complements. You can use them for all sorts of problems, setting bits, clearing bits, packing data efficiently.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. We've explored all these different ways to find the complement of an integer, from the simple to the sophisticated. We've seen how understanding bit manipulation can really be a game changer when it comes to coding.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, is there anything else that our AI.Code.Cast speaker should keep in mind as they're putting together their presentation? Something to really elevate their talk and give the audience something to ponder.
That's a really good point. We've talked about efficient solutions, but it's always good to encourage that exploration of, how to optimize even further. Like, what if you knew the range of numbers you were going to be working with? Could you use that knowledge to speed things up?
Ooh. Are you hinting at something specific?
Maybe. Let's leave our AI.Code.Cast speaker with this to think about, could pre-computed masks be the key to ultimate speed in certain situations?
Pre-computed masks. Okay, now you've really got me curious. How would that even work?
Well, imagine beforehand, right?
Okay, yeah.
That the numbers you're working with are going to be in a specific range.
Right.
So let's say 0 to 15.
Okay.
You could actually pre-calculate all the complements for each number and just store them in a table.
Oh.
So when you need a complement, you just look it up.
Oh, nice.
So instead of doing the XOR operation, you're just grabbing the pre-computed one.
So it's like super fast.
Super fast.
Yeah.
It's like a cheat sheet for complements.
Right. But wouldn't that take up a lot of memory?
Yeah.
Especially if you've got a huge range of numbers.
That's a good point. It's always a trade-off. Speed versus memory. Pre-computed masks, they're really best when you're working with a limited range of numbers.
Yeah.
And you need that speed.
Gotcha. So another tool in the toolbox, we can choose which one to use depending on the situation.
Exactly. And that's what makes this field so interesting, right? You've got all these different ways to optimize things, all these clever techniques and tricks.
Definitely. Well, this has been a really awesome deep dive into the world of bit manipulation.
It has.
We talked about different ways to find the complement of an integer, the good and the bad. We even got into some cool advanced techniques like those pre-computed masks.
Yeah, and hopefully our AI.Code.Cast speaker will be able to use all this to really give a great presentation.
I think they will. They'll break down the problem, go through the solutions, and even touch on some of these optimization strategies.
For sure.
They'll be big manipulation pro.
Absolutely. And remember, this is really just the beginning. Bit manipulation is a huge field. Lots of applications beyond just finding complements.
That's right.
It's everywhere. Cryptography, data compression, graphics, operating systems, you name it.
So to all our listeners out there, if you're interested in this stuff, keep learning. There's so much to explore.
Exactly. You might even come up with the next big, bit manipulation breakthrough.
Who knows? Well, that's a wrap for this deep dive. Until next time, happy coding, everyone.